In this video, I would like to answer a really interesting question for you guys, and that is which ancient language is the easiest to learn? Um, kind of the way our sort of Western civilization kind of treats progress is that things go from simple to more complicated, right? It's like you know there was this sort of papyrus, then we got paper, and now we have these kind of electronic screens. Things go from simple to complicated. Like in mathematics, I mean, we went from just kind of basic sort of geometrical concepts to Archimedes and Euclid, and then we got algebra. Then we got this calculus, and now math is just impossibly complicated and abstract. So same thing, from simple to complex. Same with philosophy. We just I mean, Plato is not nearly as hard to understand as Derrida. Same thing. We go from simple to complex, and this does apply to a lot of things, but that's definitely not the case with languages, which I think is kind of surprising. So ancient languages are usually more difficult than modern languages. um, Latin is more challenging than Spanish. um, Ancient Greek is more difficult than modern Greek. um, this is the case with pretty much most languages. Like ancient languages are more difficult than modern languages. um, so which if you want to learn an ancient language, which one should you get into first? And by the way, like, I'm not totally fluent in any one of these languages. Like, I mean, modern languages I know several, but ancient ones, I mean, I read like between 1 to 3 books on each one of the languages I'll be talking about. So I mean, I have a pretty good idea. So uh, first of all, I kind of would like to clear up some misconceptions which most people have about ancient languages. First of all, which languages are similar and which ones are not? Okay, a lot of people think that Greek and Latin are similar, and they're not similar at all. I mean, they're totally different languages. I mean, they're as different as Russian and English. Okay, uh, so Greek and Latin are not similar. Chinese and Japanese are not similar either. They're totally, totally different languages, even more different than Greek and Latin are. Language of Maya, the Maya language, and the Aztec language, known as Nahuatl, are also totally different. And these two languages also differ from the Inca language, Quechua. Um, so yeah, like these languages, which a lot of people sometimes group together, are actually very distinct. And now let me kind of rank them. Okay. So what is the hardest ancient language to learn? Probably the most difficult. And by the way, this also has to do with which languages you already speak. Of course, if you speak modern Greek, I mean, ancient Greek is not going to be as hard. So I just assume that you speak English and nothing else, okay? So the most difficult language to learn is Sanskrit, okay? It's very complicated. The writing system is hard to get used to, like all these characters, and I mean, it uses a script called Devanagari, which modern Hindi uses as well. Uh, Very complicated grammar, all these conjugations, and it's pretty difficult language. Very difficult Sanskrit. Okay. Um, Tamil, it's also an ancient language. Like Tamil is one of the few kind of ancient languages which still exists. I do not know much about it, but based on what I've seen, it's pretty challenging too. Uh, not as hard as Sanskrit, but close to it. Then the Maya language, very difficult grammar. Reading those hieroglyphs. It's a pretty neat language, but it's pretty challenging. Maya goes next. Um, After Maya, the next most difficult language would be Greek. Okay, Greek is very difficult to learn. Like there's so many conjugations and endings and all these, dative, accusative. It's pretty difficult. It is kind of not so bad if you know languages such as Russian or German, because like it has a lot of grammatical similarities to them, but uh, very complicated grammar. And like I said, it's not similar to Latin at all. It's a totally different language. So, what is our next language in the scale of difficulty? I would say it's Hebrew. Okay, and I think a lot of you would say, well, Hebrew is much more difficult than Greek, but it's actually much simpler than Greek. Way, way simpler. It is, kind of hard to get used to the writing system, and that's the biggest challenge. Just reading Hebrew. It's totally different, script. Because I mean, Greek at least, some of the symbols you can kind of, guess, and also Greek has a lot of words which you already know, like let's say lithos, mythos. So many words in Greek you already know, but with Hebrew that's really not the case. I mean, it's a totally different language with totally different rules. But surprisingly, the grammar of Hebrew is simple. Okay, it's a pretty simple language to understand as far as grammar is concerned. Um, so this finally, brings us to what I think is the easiest ancient language to learn, and that is um, Latin. Okay, simply without a doubt, it's the easiest. I mean, it's still a lot to learn, and the grammar is not uh, as easy as Hebrew grammar, but you already read Latin. I mean, it's English alphabet is based on those same characters as Latin. Um, it's really the easiest and one of the most rewarding languages to learn, because there is just so many masterpieces you can read, and yeah, it's a really beautiful language, and if you learn it, it will really help you with Romance languages such as Spanish, French, Italian, and Romanian. And by the way, perhaps I should have mentioned Chinese and Japanese. Well, guess what? They are as hard as Sanskrit. So go and learn Latin. That's my conclusion.